Hello, hello, hello out there, and welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. Once again, I am your co host, Pashay Felton, and that is.
Dr. Elaine Sanders.
And guess what? We have a special guest. William Michael Barbie is back to spend the evening with us to talk professional, not just our opinions.
I was
We know
nervous.
this month he was nervous. It's okay. It's okay because this month we are still talking about mental health. So, once again, we want to thank those who joined last week. We want to thank you for returning and absolutely thank you for continuously being with us on Mondays. You could be anywhere else, but you choose to be here with us. So we thank you again. Like, click, and share. You know, we have to do a disclaimer, and our disclaimer is that we are not professionals. We just talk from our life experiences in the hopes that it will help someone heal from whatever they're going through. If we relate to anyone, that they can relate to our stories and push past their pain. Disclaimer, that's our disclaimer. House rules, because sometimes it just really goes left out here. So the house rules is everyone's opinion will be respected. We will not be disrespectful on this platform. Everyone's opinion matters and it is valid. And to the point of mental health, that's why we have William Michael Barbie here to help us sift through, some of these things we go through. And tonight we are talking about rumbling with vulnerability. So again, thank you out there. And before we get started, we are going to say hi to our faithfuls in the chat.
The psalmist, he says, "What's good, Harlem girls? Ready for another power show? Let's go." He says, "Good evening, Pastor Sheila. Congratulations again."
And yes, we want to say congratulations to our viewers and bravo with Sheila, first of all, for having this platform and for all you guys tuning in and liking and sharing. Guess what? She hit the mark. Yay! So, yeah, bravo, bravo, bravo.
Anae says, "Hey at Bravo with Sheila Network." Hey, Anae. Lady Dawn B says, "Hey, HG family, Bravo Nation, what's poppin'?"
You're about to be popping in 2.5 seconds.
The psalmist says, "Welcome back, my brother William." Pastor Rosa said, "Good evening, ladies and honorable guests. Have a great show. Thank you."
Thank you. Thank you. So, before we get started, what made you come back, William Michael Barbie? Because we are so glad we didn't run you off, we didn't scare you, and you came back.
Well, I tell you first, let me say thank you for having me back. Thank you for the invitation. I truly enjoyed myself the last time I was here. The discourse was great. The fellowship was rich. Um, the conversation in and of itself was very compelling. And so it drew me back in with my good friend here, Dr. Elaine Sanders, when she says, move left, I move left. So I'm here.
You are such a smart man. So, with that being said, being that you are back, we are going to let Elaine read your bio. Well, some of your bio, because it
Some of
had to be
it.
condensed.
Condensed.
Cliff
Yeah,
notes.
So
take
I'm
it
giving
away.
you, yes, I'm giving you the cliff notes for William Michael Barbie. So first of all, he is a native um, Newark. He's a native of Newark. So he was born and raised there. He attended Jersey City State College, where he has a degree in biology and he minored in fine arts. He went to Rutgers with a degree in business management. He also attended and graduated from Pillar College, where he has a master's in clinical counseling with a concentration of marriage and family counseling. He is a filmmaker. He is an author of, if I got it, 5 books. Did I get that right? Or
5 books.
5 books.
Oh,
And one of them that I'm going to mention of the 5 is What's in Your Bag, Unpacking One Item at a Time. The second edition, I'm just going to leave that
That's
there.
right.
Right? He is a business owner, an entrepreneur. He sits on the board of the Newark YMCA, the board of directors for the Healthcare Foundation. He's also a part of the Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris. And I would just like to say, and he is also a man of God. So without any further ado, introducing or reintroducing William Michael Barbie. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Well, I thank you for having me. Let me say this. One of the, you did the abridged version in your clip notes. And so you missed one of the degrees. I got a mortuary degree. Maybe you got nervous when you saw that Pallister American Academy of Mortuary Science. So don't forget that one. That's an important one. Go ahead.
You have to bury people.
I'm a guest on your show, so you go ahead with your format.
Well, thank you.
We flow. we flow. It's all good.
I know that's right.
So let's get started. Again, we are talking about rumbling with vulnerability. So, rumbling with vulnerability and mental health are intricately connected, with each influencing the other in a profound way. Rumbling with vulnerability has profound effects on mental health, offering opportunities for personal growth, deeper relationships, and improved emotional resilience. People are afraid to be vulnerable because the information they share can be used against them. However, the effects of being vulnerable with boundaries has a positive effect on one's mental health.
So I'll pick up there. So basically what we want to do, or the format, if you have not been with us, is we ask our guests some questions and they give us their feedback, or we make statements and they give us their feedback on the particular questions. So when we look at this, one of the cons of vulnerability is rejection. Individuals may worry that if they show their true selves, others might not accept or value them, leading to social isolation or strained relationships. And then the pros of vulnerability is fostering empathy. Vulnerability can foster empathy and compassion in relationships. When individuals share their vulnerabilities, it allows others to see them as human and relatable, which can strengthen bonds and create a supportive environment. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to that? I know it was a lot.
No. I appreciate it. As you were reading, immediately my background goes to me being a former consumer of mental health services, then owner of a facility and a board member, and now as a clinician. So I fill that whole gamut of mental health services from the consumer to the provider. So part of understanding vulnerabilities came through stages. And so I understand what rejection looks like. I understand what the exposure looks like. So when we expose ourselves, we open up to judgment of others, and that presents us in a very uncomfortable way. The beauty with allowing yourself to be put in a position of vulnerability, it requires a level of trust. And so, from a clinical perspective, as Dr. Elaine, you would know that trust is a major factor for building someone and building someone to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable. I know for me, it took me a while because my clinician, when I was 20 years old, I'm 58 now, when I was 20 years old, was a white Jewish woman with an afro. She was out of Brooklyn. I didn't think she had anything to offer a brother from Newark, New Jersey. And it took some time, but she understood what release I would have when I accept trust and allow myself to be vulnerable. So yes, you hit it on with the part, the con and part, the pro of vulnerability.
Good. I like that input. So we don't have any comments as of yet. So let's keep it rolling. So, there's a con of vulnerability, emotional manipulation. Sharing vulnerabilities can sometimes lead to emotional manipulation or exploitation by others. Pros of vulnerability, emotional release. Engaging with vulnerability provides an emotional release, reducing internal tensions and stress. It allows individuals to express and process their emotions, which can lead to improved mental health and well being. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, as you was reading, I immediately thought about Shaquille O'Neal's wife. She's married to a pastor now, Pastor Keon.
Keon.
And
Keon. Hmm.
Keon, right? And he was just recently speaking to this, and he was speaking to his congregation. I think it was last Sunday, and he was telling them, and particularly focused on the women population. When you have a man who becomes vulnerable, allows himself to be vulnerable to his mate, and she uses that later on down the line, and as she weaponizes it to make a point, that man completely shuts down. And so when we're talking about um, fears of being vulnerable, it's because a lot of times there is levels of manipulation when we're exposed. And it takes a lot of strength to get to the point where you're going to allow yourself to be exposed. And I always found it interesting. I know I didn't understand it in the beginning, the freedom that I would have when I allowed myself to explore areas of being vulnerable. And so when I think about what you were saying, it immediately goes back to what Pastor Keon was saying about when it's weaponized, because that's what you were speaking to, the fear of manipulation, fear of someone using it to your disadvantage. Because often the con with vulnerability, it shows up to some people as weakness, whereas for me, it's a strength. It's because I'm not bound by your thoughts, your opinions. I'm strictly governed within, and it's that spiritual thing that I have. So I can freely share with you, freely express without any hidden agendas. But often people who are hurt or experience levels of hurt. Well, let's go there. So when we're talking about vulnerabilities, you expose yourself to pain. You expose yourself to that manipulation of others. But there's a freedom that comes with being vulnerable if we allow ourselves to go there. But that requires us to really dig deep in what I always talk about, and we'll be talking about in my men's group. I host this men's group every 2 weeks, and this next one is about IQ versus EQ, intellectual quotient versus emotional intelligence. And I take them through a series of stages with emotional intelligence, because the book talks about 4. William Michael Barbie, talk about 6. And so for me, it's about hitting on being first emotionally present, knowing your emotions, knowing your triggers, being able to relate to someone, empathetic, and then conflict resolution within the environment as well as within yourself. And so when you go through those stages, being vulnerable is secondary to, someone's opinion is secondary to your ability to be vulnerable.
Yeah, that's good. And it's something I said, I don't know what show it was on or what the topic was. And I shared, and what I said is, for me, I choose to be vulnerable, right? It's a choice. And the reason why I choose to be vulnerable, because I get to be my authentic self. I don't have to hide who I am. However, on the flip side of that, if that person I'm being vulnerable with chooses to misuse it or try to manipulate, I have learned sooner than later that that's not the person for me. I didn't lose anything. I'm not going to change who I am because you can't accept who I am. And I just learned, opposed to 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, I learned sooner than later, you're not for me.
Let me push on that. Can I, if I may?
Sure.
Can I push back on that? Yeah. So sometimes we all have families of origin, right? And we all have perceptions, and we all bring. Dr. Elaine talked about what's in your bag, unpacking one item at a time. Second edition is my 3rd book. And I had to write this 3rd book after having her as a professor, because I had to dig deep within myself, because there were some components that were missing that dealt with spiritual journey. And it dealt with me breaking down my perception of what my relationship was with God, and really tackling how God is shaping me through the pains, through all these things. So my point, as you were speaking, is that often we come with our own baggage, and we bring things to our relationships, and we believe before we cut these relationships off, we say it's them. But often I always go back to the Bible and say, let a man examine himself. And I think sometimes if we fail to do that in the process of making a decision based on emotions of how we feel because we're vulnerable in a vulnerable space, sometimes we're making a rush decision based on emotionalism and less on what the facts are, because we hear what we want to hear based on how we feel, our experiences, past, present, good, bad, or indifferent. So I just, you said something, so it just triggered that.
No, that's fine because in the book, I believe it was moving forward from broke. I'm sorry, Lane. I'm gonna just say this real quick. Moving forward from broken to beautiful. I wrote in there, and we talked about it on the show. One of the hardest things for me was to look in the mirror and it's like, you're jacked up, opposed to keep pointing, it's the other person, it's the other person. No, you're jacked up. And I believe that's one of the hardest things we can do as individuals, to take a look at ourselves and see our flaws. But the beauty is, once you see them, you get to challenge them. You get to work on yourself and become that better version of you. Elaine had something to say.
Yes, I wanted to go back to an earlier point that you talked about, I think like in your men's group. And I guess the question I would ask, the inquiring minds of women, how can women better, I guess, communicate in that conversation where a man is being vulnerable without feeling like it is used to weaponize later? I think, if I had to say, I think sometimes women in general, we like to help, and you said that earlier. So it could be bringing it up as a point of reference, not necessarily coming at it as like, I'm now using this as a weapon against you. So what are your thoughts on that?
So thank you for that. And so going back to what we just discussed, we all bring stuff to the table. And if we go back to the little boy and the little girl, boys and girls were lied to by our parents who had good hearts. For the girl, she was really nurtured when she fell and had the boo-boo. The boy, when he had the boo-boo with the same pain, same incident with the ground, man up. Boys don't cry. And so he goes through life holding in his pain, never knowing how to express it. Girls are given the words. They learn, and that's why, we talk about the sixth sense that women have, and that stuff is real. Guys don't understand it, but y'all see some stuff we just don't see. So I do give you credit there, but that's because from childhood, you were nurtured to express yourself, to be in touch with your feelings. And then you have your hormonal stuff that happens. So you're really in touch with how you're really feeling about things. Men aren't going through that because we were denied as children, as young boys. And so we grow up to be the caretaker, the protector, and men don't cry. And all these lies that we come to believe. So when we get into relationship with you, me, and you understand that, where is that disconnect? It's not so much that we don't feel, because we feel the same pain. It's how we express it. So understanding the signs, like, don't expect the signs to come from a man that you would get from your girlfriend. I have some friends who talk to me, some female friends, and they think half the time I'm their girlfriend. They say everything but, girl, let me tell you, I'm like, hey, I'm not your girlfriend. But the reality is that we have to be more conscious that we were, though raised in the same environment, we have two different experiences. And they started as early as childhood. And so communicating and conveying and understanding it, as Dr. Keehan said, once you violate that and it's weaponized, that man never opens up again. And I tend to push back on that when he made that statement, because it's such a hard thing. But I understand it when I'm hosting or facilitating groups every 2 weeks, where I have 20 brothers in front of me every 2 weeks. We have a constituency of 69 men. But every other week I allow 20 to come. And we have everything from the doctor to the pastor of churches and to the felon, to the 19-year-old kid who never knew his father, to hear this pain from men and to talk about relationships and see how their wives are interacting or how we're missing each other. We're still going in the same direction, but we're missing each other. Part of it is stepping away, not to look at him as someone who's going to express it the way. So part of it is managing our expectations of one another. And that's something that we have to be very cognizant of. We can't expect him to be what our girlfriends are or what our brothers are. We have to be willing to meet him where he is, as he's willing to meet you where you are. Because women are a piece of work. Y'all know y'all a piece of work, right?
Yeah.
You're
I
doing
know.
good, William.
I don't deny. I'm totally transparent. So before we move on, y'all know the commercial break is our comments. So we have some faithful followers and we have some comments in here. So let's go to comments.
The psalmist said, self-reflection is always key. Mark said, good evening.
Hey, Mark.
Antoinette says, good evening, HG. Let's go.
Let's go.
Antoinette said, hello, Bravo Nation.
They out here talking to each other.
Mark Odom said, hey, sis, Lady Dawn B.
So here we go.
The psalmist says, listen authentically. And if the man is giving you his true, authentic self, then there is no reason for you to use it as a weapon. Agreed. Mark says, that's a good question, Elaine. Thank you. I like to think that I can ask them. The psalmist says, real talk, Brother William. Lady Dawn B said, we should never weaponize a person's vulnerability for your benefit. It's sad that this has become a part of a relationship that is supposed to be safe spaces.
A safe space.
That part, William, with the exclamation points. Anae says, yep, a divine sculptured piece of work.
Are they talking out here tonight?
Mark said, men, we need to be more vulnerable when expressing himself. Okay.
He made his correction.
Okay.
Ourselves. Okay, so now we're going to move on. And Elaine?
Before we move on, I thought they had some real good comments. And one of the comments spoke about what we just talked about, which was weaponizing. And as she made the comment, it immediately hit me again, because sometimes we don't know that we're weaponizing anything, because we have come accustomed, men and women separately, have come accustomed to a certain behavior. And some dispositions that we've taken, we've normalized, whether it's trauma, whatever. And so we apply what we know where we are to every situation, and every key doesn't open, each door. So we just always have to be mindful of that. That came to me. So I enjoyed the fact that your audience is really filling this space.
Yeah, that's good. It's not a one size fit all.
And communication is key. So the next set of questions or thoughts, cons of vulnerability, fear and anxiety. The fear of judgment or rejection can increase anxiety and stress. The pros of vulnerability, resilience building, confronting and working through vulnerability builds emotional resilience. This resilience helps individuals manage future challenges and stresses more effectively, contributing to better overall mental health. So your thoughts?
Oh, it's my turn now. Okay.
It's your turn.
It's your turn.
Y'all didn't give me my key.
Right.
I look at that, and of course, you're speaking from research and you're speaking from experience. And so you're pointing out some very key things. I remember for myself. And so it's best to talk about what I know through experience and then talk about what I learned as a result. I told you earlier, I didn't trust my therapist, but what led me into counseling at the early age was I had maladaptive behaviors that I turned inward that resulted in me being hospitalized. And so having a psychologist and a psychiatrist, I was forced into a corner where I had to make choices for my life and if I wanted to move forward. So looking at being vulnerable, trusting in order to get liberation, freedom, it was a process for me. And so I always go back to those areas where I had to learn trust and what trust really meant and how it really fits into different circumstances and situations, but more importantly, how I felt about myself. It had to always be turned inwardly. Once I trusted myself, I was willing and able to trust someone else, but that took years. It took a long time to get there. And so, answering your question, I like to go around the corner so we can have a full dialogue.
Go around the corner.
Because it's not always just clear cut. Because if we just say one word or two words, we're missing someone else's experiences. Because trust is just a major factor. And while you say vulnerability, I tend to push back with the word called trust.
And I
can see that.
I would say I also think, going back to your earlier statement, depending on how we grew up, that teaches us how we trust or the lack thereof. If we grew up where we felt safe, then we're more than likely, not all, but more than likely, we'll lean into trust and vulnerability a little bit more, opposed to if we had to always try to figure it out or never, or felt unsafe. I think that plays a part in it as well.
And that's
totally.
Good. So I thought you were saying something. Yeah, I was just going to do a quick recap because tonight we are talking about vulnerability, rumbling with vulnerability, and the effects it has on mental health. As you heard William Michael Barbie say, he had a therapist, he has a counselor, he's a counselor. We have all, I can't say we all have, but I believe we should seek professional help to get through the trust factors, the barriers that hold us back from being vulnerable, because it stems from somewhere. No one just grows up and says, I'm not trusting. It's something that happened to you to where it made you, okay, I can't trust in this area, or I can't trust in that area, whatever the mistrust looks like to you. So that's what we're talking about. Again, we just want to say thank you to Brene Brown. Again, I read this book, Dare to Lead. She speaks to a lot of leaders, but I believe these topics are universal. It's just not set to leaders.
Beautiful what you just said, but add to that, babies learn trust before they learn love. Because that trust is the first thing that they become dependent on. They can rely on something to hit the mouth to satisfy, as with Freudian's theory of the id. They can rely on that satisfaction. It's not that they love, because it's not developed yet, but it's the trust. So trust is a key factor. So I was happy to hear that.
Yep. So
I think that's so true, because I'm just thinking as a mom, like, and we say like the kid learns to fall in love with the mother. No, they're not. They're like, every time I look up, she is that face that's providing the milk, the comfort, the whatever. And then you learn to say, and then you cry and say, where's the person I know who understands me? Yeah. So I think that's
the trust
revelation in that is, as we get older, that cry is, I'm looking for the person that understands me. Even as we build relationships as adults, we start to look for the person we think will understand us the best, to be able to understand the unspoken words, so that you can earn that, I guess, get to love, but the trust or vulnerability factor comes first. Yeah. I love when revelation.
And I think, yes, revelation just happens like, and also I think all of that, the trust factor that we're looking for, to what you said, Elaine, and that other person, it can be the little girl and the little boy coming out of us, still looking and searching if we never had it, or if we had it and it was lost. Who can I just be? Who can I just be? I don't have to put this on. I don't have to do anything. I just want to be. I want the little girl to come out. No, I don't want to. I want to have a tantrum. And him say, no, girl, go sit down. You're having a tantrum right now. Just go on with yourself. Just be, that person that gets you. And I'm quite sure it's the same for men. I want to play my game right now. I don't feel like talking to you right now. I got to do this, whatever that looks like. So I think the little girl in us and the little boy in us is always still there, looking as an adult, now looking for that person to say, you're my person. I can just be, I can just let the little girl go. I can just let the little boy go.
I would even just say, one of my sayings is this: we spend our adult lives trying to work out our childhood issues. So when we encounter or when we're in search of that adult, right? Because now we're here, whatever here looks like in this adult stage. But then there's that internal yearning for, and I call it your person, because I've said this quite often. There's a lot of good people, but it's not your person. That's not your guy. You know, because it's something innate that says this person could satisfy that, or at least you believe, right? Until
Right.
they show you other things, and you're like, no, danger, Will Rogers.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point that I'm making is, I think when we look back, we're looking for that safe space, and I think that's the main thing. I think about even as adults, that thing of saying women look for men who are like their fathers, right? If you found safety in your dad, then you start to look for men who have those qualities because it reminds you of your safe space. And I think that, you know, that's a part of that vulnerability that I think we all want, or that safe space that we can trust whomever.
And
You
here's the
always thought,
flip side of that. Oh, sorry, go.
no,
Respond to
please.
what.
Flip side,
Nope.
flip side.
The flip side of that is, for you all that didn't know, and William Michael Barbie, you probably don't know, my dad was murdered the day I was born, right? So I had no one, right, to say, I need that, because that's what my dad was. So the flip side is that is, if you were raised in a female dominant family like mine, and you didn't have that real male figure or what a man is supposed to be, then it turns around to now I'm searching. And I'm being vulnerable with wrong people because I don't even know what the heck I'm looking for because I don't have a blueprint. Right?
But you know
So,
what's
yeah.
interesting about that? Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a very rare position to be in. Not that you didn't have a father, but that your father was actually murdered the day you were born. So my condolences are still extended to you and your family. But I always look at where trust is violated, understanding that children come in innocently to this world, live this world, and trusting the adults that's supposed to protect and take care of them. And when it's violated, it goes back to what Elaine was saying. We spend adulthood trying to find out areas from our childhood. And so often when we show up in the physical representation of this adult body as a man, we're still speaking from a wounded child perspective. And so at that point where the wound occurred, that's where our emotional awareness or intelligence usually is, because we have never dealt with that childhood issue. One of the things that when I was in therapy, and then I learned it years later, to be certain, I had to write myself a note. I did a lot of journaling. But as an adult, I had to write the child in me, Mickey, a note. And it's interesting. I brought this concept, which is um, a Gestalt theory and technique, where he has an empty chair and you're speaking to your emotion, that thing that hurt you, or that thing that loved you, or that person that loved you or hurt you. And with our men's group, we were doing different dynamics and stuff, and we were just talking and really going in certain areas. And we did a consult thing because the men had established trust, and we had one guy sit here and the other one sits because they had a good trusting relationship, and they spoke to that person as though it was their child. And to be able to release yourself and express yourself to that child, to talk about where that violation went, where that pain was, where that innocence was robbed, and then to talk about where we are today. And then at the end of that discourse that he had with his child, he said, "Do you forgive me?" And it was that child, the person who just established trust over the past 6 months, had to live the experience by listening to his story and speak from the child and say, "You've never left me." And often we have to bridge those gaps. But it takes some, you have to be very deliberate about wanting to heal some of these broken areas. We have folks who just show up and think that I'm ready because we put makeup on, and you ain't that tall. Take the heels off. Your hair ain't that color. Get that dye out of there.
Right.
Take that pink lipstick. She's like, right, get off. No, I'm just no offense. Where's brother Mike? Mike's coming on board. Say no. Let me stop.
Hold on, because the red is going to stay. But no, thank you for that comment. And before we move on, we commercial break.
Oh, okay.
Oh gosh. Lady Dawn B said, yes, ma'am, Pache. Can I just be at least for a minute? I'm just saying. Antoinette said, I can so relate, Pache. No point of reference, so I had to learn by trial and error, and it was more error than anything. So I got to the place of not being willing to go through the trial. Understood. Antoinette said, being vulnerable with the wrong people can cause a lot of damage, but understanding that it's okay to be that way, just be selective about who you are that way with, still learning. And we all are.
And it's just a journey. It's just a journey. But before we go on,
we need you to please hit the like button. It's free 99. We thank you, appreciate you for being here. Subscribe and share.
The mezzanine seat, the bleachers,
It's
wherever you at, you coming out the
like
bushes.
That.
It's just it's free. It's not gonna cost you a thing. It's not going to take away from your life. But we appreciate you being here.
Lady Dawn B says, I think the caveat to having no point of reference is having a point of reference, safe space. Then that safe space is gone, leaves. It leaves you thinking safe spaces don't last long. That's true.
Yeah, but I can see that becoming a cycle. And it just turns into, I see it becoming a cycle in the way that she's saying it.
The psalmist says, done. Like, share, subscribe. Let's go. Thank you.
Let's go. Thank you. That's all we ask.
That's all we need.
So before we move,
payment,
do you ask for anything? There you go. Before we move on, do you want something in respects to the comments?
I must have missed something.
No, she said, did you want to comment?
No. They was like, let's go. So let's go.
Let's go.
Follow the comments.
So last one. Cons of vulnerability. Misunderstanding. Vulnerability might be misunderstood or not well received, leading to social isolation or strained relationship. That social isolation, just isolation period, can do a number mentally. That I just felt the need to say that. So pros of vulnerability: normalizing struggles. That's good. Openly discuss vulnerability helps to normalize struggles and reduce the stigma associated with mental health issues. This can encourage others to share their own experiences and seek help, creating a more accepting and supportive community. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the social isolation is something that comes with it when you feel violated, when you don't feel like that you are heard. The best advice you could give someone sometimes is just to listen, to like close the mouth and open the ears and open the heart. From a clinical perspective, you have to have an open heart. You have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to accept what comes out without judgment. And so being able to be in that position to receive someone who's coming to the table with apprehensions, with fear, with anxiety, with all of these factors is something. But, knowing that they're coming, they may be dealing with that isolation thoughts and feelings. And so hurdling those barriers that I would call, it requires a level, again, trust. But it's the trust that you have to establish within yourself. And so through a clinical perspective, you can arrive there when you've had some type of guide, support, facilitation. I think you guys are just saying facts. What do you want me to say fact too?
No, you can say fact too, but listen, you got some support in here. Listen, Mike said, I'm
Mike,
here.
I'm here. I'm waiting
That's my
to
brother.
get co-host status. You're
That's
on
right.
point, brother.
So
Thank you,
what
Mike.
we're going to do, I'm going to drop the link. We're going to play this clip again. These topics are from Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. So we're going to play the clip. I'm going to drop the link for the men out there that want to jump on, because the link is coming. And we know who else is coming behind the link.
Keep leaning.
Okay, let's do that.
That was quick.
again.
All I'm saying about vulnerability is that when you are in uncertainty, when you feel at risk, when you feel exposed, don't tap out. Stay brave, stay uncomfortable, stay in the cringy moment, lean into the hard conversation, and keep leading. Stay brave. I'm not saying you need to overshare, I'm not saying you need to weep uncontrollably to show how human you are. I'm saying try to be aware of your armor. And when you feel vulnerable, try not to transform up. Try to stay human, keep leaning.
So what's your thoughts on, and that was Brene Brown.
Well, I tell you, that was good. I never heard her. Neither did I get the clip. I don't think we played it tonight. That's the first time.
Right, this is the first time.
Okay,
So-
okay. Yeah, don't tap out. That is very key. Often we get in a situation and we think that's the end all be all. And we make decisions based on fear and everything else, misunderstanding and stuff. And so understanding life is a process that we have to go through. And in order to go through, you can't tap out where you are because you'll never get past that point there. And so she also spoke to uncertainty. And I thought that was a very good word that can really sum up how many people feel. Very uncertain about circumstances, which lead to tap out, which lead to some of everything. And so she says, stay brave, stay aware of your armor. When she says stay aware of your armor, man, we are stronger than what we give ourselves credit for. And so I'm always encouraging people to speak life over yourself and those you love, because not often enough do we really have that confidence within ourselves. I was a people's pleaser for many years of my life. And part of that, excuse me, that's no tears. I got choked up now. Hey,
it's okay. Make it cry.
Mike, I'm still a man. Psalmist, I'm still a man. No,
I can hear Mike in the back going, yes. No.
No, I was a people. Mike, I'm not getting weak. Don't worry about it, brother. I got you. But no, I was a people's pleaser. And being a people's pleaser, you have no identity. Your goal is to make them happy, and you're never meeting your expectations because of wherever that area in my life at that time where I was wounded. I never got past it because I found happiness. I found joy watching them happy. And I didn't realize it was at a cost to me. And so once I ended up going through this process, first making a bad choice that led me in the hospital. Secondly, being forced into counseling. Like people say, I went to counseling. I have a good relationship with my counselor. I have a problem when people say that because I can't be in counseling initially saying how happy it is because I'm there to find out where my brokenness is. And so part of doing work requires me to do a deep dive in myself. And so part of that work means I cannot give up. I cannot stop at my pain or brokenness, no matter what brought me to counseling. Like some people come to substance use disorder clinics because it's court mandated. There's a threat, I'm going to leave you in the relationship. Or it's somebody who really hit their rock bottom with no other choice. But no matter what, you get there, you're going to have to go through it. And so when she was saying with her comments, don't tap out, I love that. Be aware of your armor because we're strong. We're all shaped and made in the image of God, man. We're more than what we give ourselves credit. And so when that was a good clip. I think you should share that again. Come on, station break.
No, I will. Station break. I'll play it again. I'll play it again. That's okay. You want to say something?
Yes. I think in something that you said, it's we can either hurt to hurt or hurt to heal. And going and pushing past in that vulnerability, we make that decision. Either I'm going to stay here in this broken state and that's it, or I'm gonna sit in the victim's chair and that's it. Or I'm going to decide to push past through this, crying, whatever that looks like, whatever I need to get to the other side, that I'm better. I like to think about it, for those of us that's here, the bionic woman or the bionic man, right? You were injured, what's his name? Steve Austin. Am I right? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was this horrific thing that happened. And then they said, and for me, looking at it from a God's lens, God says, but I can rebuild them. They're going to be stronger and faster. They can hear or see, depending on which one we're talking about, bionic man or woman. They can run faster, all of these things. But we have to get to the point to say, I'm willing to get on the master's table so that surgery can happen. And the thing that I lost becomes sharper now as a result of putting it in his hands, so that when I move forward from a different perspective, and I'm sharp. I'm just stronger. I'm better than I was. And the experience actually made me better because I chose to go through it and not stop in it.
Mm.
And that's good, because something you said and something she said about leaning in, stay there, don't mask up, and I'm gonna play it again. And it's the same way with God, right? He constantly has to cut and slice and do surgery, and it never feels good. I don't know about for y'all, because I'll be like, this what we doing right now, because I really don't want to be here. I don't like how this feels. It's not like I have a choice, but I do have these conversations with him, right? But it's that same surgery that has to be done to get us to where he wants us to be. And that takes even being vulnerable and naked before him, because sometimes we can get in front of God and try to keep that mask on and act like he don't know when he really knows. But he's saying, I want all of you, the broken pieces. I want all of you. So it's being vulnerable, being naked before him, and just saying, I surrender. Here I am.
And thank you for that. And there's another piece with vulnerability that has to speak to it's okay to be weak. And so when we
I'm gonna play the other
stop
one. Mm-hmm.
with believing weakness is a deficiency where it is a blessing, and look at it from that blessing part, that's when, like, look, a brother here will cry and talk through his tears. A brother here will experience the fullness of my emotion. I have brothers in our men's group who talk about beautiful, kind, sweet. That's lovely. Oh, that's nice. Because prior to that, they wouldn't use those words, even though it's in the vocabulary. And so when I think about what you're saying, I just think, often we talk about being strong, and we know that God strips us clear and clean. But it's all right to be weak too. It's totally okay to be weak, as long as you're falling forward. Fall forward.
Falling forward, yeah. And hey, Pastor Chris, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna play one more because I have another clip. But what you were saying, William Michael Barbie, it's a segue to this, and it's what she's talking about in weakness, and we'll play the other one as well.
Emotional risk, exposure. How many of you, honestly, when you're thinking about doing something vulnerable or saying something vulnerable, think, God, vulnerability is weakness. This is weakness. How many of you think of vulnerability and weakness synonymously? The majority of people. And that myth is profoundly dangerous. I define vulnerability as emotional risk, exposure, uncertainty. It fuels our daily lives. And I've come to the belief, this is my 12th year doing this research, that vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. To be vulnerable, to let ourselves be seen, to be honest. If we're going to find our way back to each other, vulnerability is going to be that path.
So now you see why I had this played at. So what's your thought? Pastor Chris dropped the mic. So William Michael Barbie, what's your thoughts? And then we're going to go to Pastor Chris. I don't know. Mike might be scared tonight. Just teasing. We know he's not scared.
No, I thought, again, I was enjoying her perspective, because one of the things she said, being vulnerable is the most accurate measure of
courage.
Of courage. And to hear from that lens is really refreshing. And so when I speak to weakness is not anything different than what she said. I just phrased it differently. And so that's why I know that one key doesn't open every door. And so we have to speak in a more in a broader perspective, so that because everyone's experience of what vulnerability looks like is different, is based on what our past experiences were, what we're bringing to the table, what our family's origins were, what we learned in the process, how we're applying it, and what we're not. So no, she's hitting on some very key points. Yeah, I truly enjoyed it. Go ahead, Pastor. You want to say something? You had your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you pretty much summed it up, William. I've been dapping you up this whole show because basically you've been telling the truth, especially coming from a man's perspective. Because again, we're all learned, and then and you come from the same line. Because I'm from Plainfield, you from North, so we neighbors. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for the show. Anyway, see, when you learn how to break as a man, and I'm not going to preach here, but there's some significance here. When you learn how to break from the machoism and from the thugism and from the Tyronism and the Shaquitism, sorry, I'm probably offending some folk, but I got to be real. When we start breaking those things down and we start building ourselves up to a point where we can still be transparent and still be powerful and strong and leaders, see, we're not looked at that way. We're looked at, in our community, not saying all, but some. In our community, as a black man, you cry, you speak with articulation, you know how to use the English language, you're considered a sellout or an Oreo. I'm going somewhere with this. So when you are mentally taking the mess you learned from the hood, and you're re-educating your mind to something that's going to make you a better man, a provider, a lover, a friend, all the things that we all want as men, and still be able to cry and hold my woman and still hold it down. And if I got to get thugged with it, I got to get thugged with it when the time allows. But when it comes to emotional stimulation, when it comes to making sure my woman is there, making sure we're both here on the same page, we men have to step up from that. Forget all this machoism, trying to get 12 packs and big guns and all this nonsense. Look, it's great to be in shape. Don't get me wrong. But the thug phase is over. These women are older now. They want a man that they can talk to. They want a man that they can confide in. Now, for some ladies, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother show, because I'm not going to break that down. But all I'm going to say is we got to come up, and we got to come up big, not trying to demasculate nobody out there. All I'm saying is we got to come up from where we came from and be better men and be better providers, be better lovers, be better friends, be better communicators. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm done.
Hey, Pastor Chris, let me jump on this. So thank you for that. But one of the things that me, you, Mike, and other men, we have to be the example for those young ones. Because if we're not the example for them, they'll never understand that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to say beautiful words, and it's okay to smell a flower or a rose or buy yourself some roses. I was just in the garden yesterday. I put it all over social media. I'm in the garden, but it doesn't separate my manhood. I'm also a full contact martial artist. I can beat the average guy, but I like to wave and say, hey, but I'll still beat you down, and so it's not a matter. It's more than just us talking it, right? It's about us living it, because in order for that young boy to hear it, he has to see it. I was on now I'll shut up in a minute. The two hosts up here. I was on the platform. Raz Baraka has a show called All Politics Are Local, and the brothers they host this show, and they had me on there 2 years ago, and I brought Bob Davidson, executive director of Mental Health Association that I'm on the board of. And one of the things was, Brother Mike, when are we going to do this and do that? I said, well, brother, we have to lead by example. He said, no, man, I can't do this. I said, brother, you're lying to that little boy and you're expecting him to be something different. If you're not showing your emotions, how can you expect him to be otherwise? And so I just echo everything you said, Pastor. That was really good. I just had to jump on Pastor's side because Michael's on, and I ain't want to start no trouble.
Okay, so before we get started, commercial break, quick commercial break. We love our guys. She can't even read. Mark Odom said, being vulnerable leads to your testimony, and your testimony is to help someone else, to what both of you just said, what Michael Barbie just said. Hey, Robin.
Hey, Robin. Good evening. Anae says, hey, Corey. Corey said, preach. Robin says, the thug phase is over. Well said. 100.
Right.
Lady Dawn B says, say so, Mr. William. Laugh out loud. Give them a flower after the Kung Fu beatdown. I support your cause. Laugh out loud.
I support your cause. Hey, Mike. How you doing? So,
Good evening.
You getting your thoughts? Good
No,
evening.
he getting his credit cards together. I guess he going to swipe.
So while he getting his
know.
credit cards together, let's go back and play the clip. I don't know. Let's get the cards, the clip. You know, Mike needs a little time, you know.
All I'm saying about vulnerability is that when you are in uncertainty, when you feel at risk, when you feel exposed, don't tap out. Stay brave, stay uncomfortable, stay in the cringy moment, lean into the hard conversation, and keep leading. Stay brave. I'm not saying you need to overshare, I'm not saying you need to weep uncontrollably to show how human you are. I'm saying try to be aware of your armor, and when you feel vulnerable, try not to transform up. Try to stay human, keep leaning.
Okay.
You know, the only pushback I have there is she's still, and I get what she's saying, so I don't want you to think I disagree with her. I 100% agree with her. But I just want people to know that being weak is still part of life, and you don't have, she's saying push through it, but I still want you to know that it's okay when you're there, long as you don't stop. You know, I think that's the only part that's missing in her statement.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's the only part.
And the also part uncertainty. I think that's a hard place when we're uncertain. I think that's also a place that can hold us back, because it's the fear. Cannot trust, cannot be vulnerable here because you're uncertain, especially when you're getting to know someone. You're not too sure. But how do we get to that space, you know? But of course, that would take time. So Mike McDonald, good evening. Is he even paying attention? Oh, okay.
Good evening. Yeah, of course I'm paying attention. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You know, I came on when you start talking that scared talk, but
I know that's why I said it.
Yeah, I know that's why you said it.
You're predictable.
But anyway, but everything that was said, I have no opposition to. Everything was basically on point. Kudos to you, Michael.
Thank you.
You know, I thought everything, that was said was great. Except for one thing, when you say when you say vulnerability and you make it synonymous with being weak, I don't think those two words should go hand in hand. I have a slight problem with that. I understand the narrative, but when we talk about that narrative, especially with Black men, it kind of dumbs us down. It kind of weakens us for the masses. So, and we this is pretty much a Black forum. This is and when we trying to show our masculinity, our power as men, I don't being vulnerable is one thing, but tying in that word as making it synonymous with being weak is another. That's the only beef I've had.
Well, let me acknowledge and say thank you, but I wasn't making weakness synonymous with that. I said weakness is part of the process. It's just you don't stop at weakness, but you should experience every part of what you have to go through to get through to that other side. Where I did early in the show, I talked about trust, and I aligned that more so with vulnerability versus weakness. But I know you were driving, you probably heard a horn and it sounded like something else. So
No. In actuality, I tallied the number of times you said weakness, and I think I got 15.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
16 weakness.
yeah. So you pretty much made it synonymous with vulnerability.
Mike, have you practiced using words like pretty, sweet, kind, like the last time we were here?
No, I don't, and I won't. But it's not to say that I've never used those words, you know. So this is the only thing the beef I have. It's not even a beef, you know. The difference I have, you know. I think men play a role. Men are supposed to play a role. They're expected to play a role. And we have to play a role as the stronger in the partnership. And I don't mean that to be chauvinistic or anything like that, but women look to men to be the stronger emotionally, and I think they should keep that role.
That's how you experience it.
That's how I experienced. Yes.
Okay.
If I can step in as a woman,
Mhm.
I think a part of it is the safe space. I think that who you choose to have your safe space of vulnerability with is key. So that it's not going to the point earlier being weaponized, or there's not that communication, because ultimately I think as a woman, you want to know that your partner has is there any emotions in there? Because then as a woman, you will begin to feel like he's not even listening. It's like talking to a brick wall. And yes, he provides, and yes, he can protect, but I have no idea how he feels. It made me think of a joke I heard once, and the wife said to the husband, "You never tell me you love me." And he said, "Well, when I change my mind, I'll let you know." So it wasn't the matter. Yes, he still loved her, but she wanted to hear it. So although in his mind, I'm still here, that represents I love you. For her, she needed to hear it. And sometimes I believe men can think, well, I do this, I do. So that you're counting the task versus having the relationship of communication, of hearing it.
But it goes to we
I think it
experience
goes
life
back.
differently.
Right.
Right.
I was just gonna say William Michael made that point earlier in terms of how we communicate with one another, and us women expecting men to communicate the same way that we do, or men expecting women to communicate to them the same way that they do.
Yeah, the first part starts with examining ourselves. You know, we can have expectations of others, but yet we're all broken and we want them to be what we're not. And so we expect them to speak a certain way when our languages is different. I mean, Mike is the epitome of what probably machoism looks like in relationship. And it's not so much a bad thing or a great thing, but, you know, he understands something that was taught to him to be strong in this way. But strength also comes with emotional intelligence. And sometimes we spend so much on the physicality and the appearance of strength, and we're really very weak. And so as soon as we hit with that emotional challenge, we think that this is the way to handle it, or we think a strong voice is the way to handle it, or I shut down. Someone in one of our experiences with the Brotherhood says, I just put it on the shelf and I say it's done. But no, do you put it on the shelf and it stays there and you come back every time you want to use it as a point of your communication? No, we have to strength for everyone is different. But where I try to get us as men to speak to that experience, walk through those pains, walk through those expressions, those uncomfortable feelings in order to get to a whole nother level of maturity. And that's, to me, is strength. Strength isn't so much in the muscle. It's the muscle that's up here and here in that relationship that we have there. And that's where a lot of us as men, we've been denied to since childhood. And we still have the same practice of, no, it's this way or the highway. I have a friend who always talks about my way or the highway. And I'm like, how can it be your way or the highway, bro? You know, so I think it's all relative, but we have to be willing to say that maybe I need to. The Bible said, let a man examine himself. If you don't want to believe the Bible, think about Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. You know, and so we really have to be real with that, because men and women, but as a brother, I can speak from our perspective because we don't understand y'all half the time. But yet, guess what? As the brother said, they're still present. And so you have to understand how he expressed himself. If you want better results from him, do something different. Try to understand him and not
Absolutely.
Well, that sounds easy to say, absolutely, but do we really?
I can talk to me. Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Y'all already know who y'all talking to. Absolutely. We have a commercial break. Drop the mic, and all of that. But the men are talking tonight. I love it. I love it.
Mark says, if a lot of us Black men have shown our weakness, it might have saved the lives of many men that played the role of being the cultural macho.
There you go.
Because you don't have that wall up.
Eric Vaughn said, blessings all.
Hey, Vaughn.
I remember Vaughn.
Antoinette says, that's right, William. Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Any other thoughts? Pastor Chris, Mike, what you got?
I think Mike's frozen in the Twilight Zone right now. But
all right, be clear with which Mike. I know who you're talking about, but say Mike McDonald.
Oh, Mike McDonald. Yeah.
I did say, yeah, Pastor Chris. Oh, you talking to Pastor Chris? Go.
Yeah. Mike McDonald's frozen right now, so I'll just go ahead. But I think the one thing, and I can bring I'll say churchdom. There's a difference between church and churchdom. Okay, churchdom plays on words, right? Churchdom also plays on emotionalism, right? Churchdom also plays on, we finally break you as a man, and now we're going to spit you out, right? Okay, now you meet a woman in church, hypothetical situation, you broke yourself from being thug dizzle, and now you have a job, you speak articulate, you're going back to school, you're not working at McDonald's anymore, you got your nice little mailroom job, because you got to start from the bottom, you got to start somewhere, right? You do all these changes that some, not all churches implement, right? You do all these things. You meet that woman that has it going on. She has those things, all that stuff, right? And then I'm not saying all women, so please, ladies, don't inbox me. All I'm saying is that when you meet that one that destroys the new built man from the source, which we believe is God, our source, right? In churchdom, I'm saying in a real relationship with God. That's a whole nother story. So we have this faith. I've changed. I'm not a thug no more. I'm speaking articulate. I got a better job, and I still got played out. Now what? So now guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to reform back, go back to my back jeans, stagger my pants. I'm about to go back on the block and do my thing because you found me more attractive being thug dizzle than me being Carlton Banks. I'm done. So again, in some, not all, we have these things that happen to men, and it's sincere. Men are actually going to the house of faith. Some are getting actual change from the inside and from here and externally being transformed. It's a difference. Not being transformed so you can get more money. Oh, that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, okay, my point is this. We got to start from somewhere. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't want to change within you, I don't care if you're 60 or you're 21. If you don't want to change this, you will never change. Because if you don't change your heart posture, your mind ain't going to follow. I'm done.
Hey, real quick, I know you're done, but just need you to adjust your mic. It's just a little choppy. We hear you, but it's fading in and out.
We ain't heard
So
nothing you said, man.
uh,
I'm joking. But you lost me on
please,
church dumb and them.
right. So please like, share, and subscribe. Up there in the bleachers, the balconies, the mezzanines, the front row, the side pew, wherever you at, just please hit that like, share, and subscribe. We're gonna take a commercial break, which y'all know is our comments.
Robin says, I'm sorry, I wasn't here earlier, so this may have been said, but I believe men do share their emotions with a woman he trusts with his heart and who doesn't sound like his mother when she is upset.
That's a good point.
Corey says, women do look for that. However, that's far from the truth. She will go out there and work, clean, and nurture. A woman can have the flu and still take care of her family. That is the absolute truth. And as you know, Vaughn, we could hear his laughter.
Thank you. I was going to say, if you know Vaughn, you hear him cracking up.
And Landon said, listening. Thank you, Landon.
Thank you all for chiming in. So, Mike McDonald, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, let me say one thing or 10 things. So there's a middle ground between being weak and being a thug, right? Just because I don't show a weakness, or I steadily say I don't like the word weak, doesn't mean that I'm a thug. It just means that, you know, we're putting out certain narratives out here that kind of diminishes the male masculinity, okay? And we so much need that in society, in relationships, and for ourselves. That's all I'm saying. I'm no thug. I'm no thug. I never portrayed myself as a thug. You know, I'm a teacher. I work with special ed kids in junior high school who are very emotional, very undisciplined. Then again, I work with babies for autistic babies in an IE program. And I have a daughter, 17-year-old daughter who I'm raising myself. So I have that middle ground. I don't have a weakness. You know, my daughter often says to me, and just recently, probably 2 days ago, you know, Dad, you're not a girl dad. No, I'm a dad. I'm not a girl dad, and you're not going to be a girly girl, but you're gonna know what's out here. I can't lie to you. I can't pamper you because the world is not going to pamper you. You understand that? So when I say that I don't want the narrative for the black man to show weakness, but how about just transparency? Because that's what we're talking about, just being transparent. If you don't put everything on the table from Jump Street and throughout, I don't think that's being vulnerable if you do, because that's what I expect. And yeah, if they weaponize, and that was a good word, and that was a good terminology that you used, Michael, that, you know, you don't want it to be weaponized against you, and that's what people are afraid of. But look, and Elaine made a point too. If you do put it out there, isn't that part of being transparent? And Pache, you I think you added that, you know, if I think the point you made was with if that person decides to use it against you and leave, well, let that person go, because that person is not for you. If the person, if you can't be transparent and talk about your vulnerability and some flaws, or if you may that you may have, and you don't put it on the table at first and you bring it up during a conversation, that's a part of you. Either I'm going to accept it or I'm not. And I'm going to put some things on the table hopefully in the beginning, I don't have any surprises for you, that, I take a risk of you liking it or you passing on it. That's just life. I don't have to say, it's a weakness. I don't have to say it's being a Neanderthal. All I'm saying is I like to be in the middle. I like certain narratives, and that's it.
That's what makes us beautiful.
That's fine. And I just
You
want to
beautiful.
say 2 things.
Oh, that's your weakness. There you go.
The point I made was, for me, I choose to be vulnerable if that person misuses it. To your point, what I said was, I learned sooner than later that person is not for me. I'm not going to change.
Okay. Right. Okay. I'm sorry. I missed that.
And the second point, I don't believe Pastor Chris was referring to you when he said thug.
No. I know he wasn't referring to me.
Okay. No, it's just the way.
Just in general. Right. Just in general. I know.
Yeah. Okay.
I understand.
Okay.
But when you Mike, when you apply the word thug, weakness, and vulnerability, is like you was throwing it all together. And there was a rich part of what Pastor Chris was saying to that statement of why why men sometimes go back to a previous position, not so much being a thug, but a previous position, because of what you just said, which is being transparent with your loved one or whatever. But what I encourage you to do, Brother Michael, because you just broke it down, I thought you did a well job, man. You equated this diminished weakness is a word that diminished men's masculinity, but I just want you also to know that weakness, beautiful, sweet are just words also. And increasing our vocabulary is very important so that we can apply it, so that we don't grow up, I'm not weak, and to say that we'll have a heart attack because we're holding all this stuff in. Black men have more heart disease as a result of carrying stress, burden, and let's not even talk about the historic stuff that we as blacks have gone through in this country. We have PTSD that went back to our ancestors that we're experiencing today. And we have yet to understand why we show up and how we show up. And so it's important that we start arming ourselves with a little more openness to something that's different, whether it is in the vocabulary or not. But we have to be able to release those things.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh, I love you, Mike.
So that's funny. Mark said, laugh out loud. I cried in front of my daughter and unfortunately had to be a thug in front of her. Laugh out loud. Pray for me. We're going to pray for you. And I venture that might have happened with a couple of dads. It's that don't mess with my daughter. Depending on, like we said before in other shows, depending on the situation, you never know what that trigger is. And I'm gonna venture to say, everybody on this panel and those in the comments, on the balconies and watching, your trigger is your child. Because I bet you if you get a phone call right now, somebody say X, Y, and Z, this whole screen will go blank. I know for me it will. Y'all be like, well, what happened to Pache? And next thing you know, y'all be putting y'all money together to come bail me out because somebody messed with my baby. So, but my point is, we all have that thing, right? And I would venture to say that that's our kids. And that's a place where we're totally naked. That's a place where we're totally vulnerable. So absolutely. Oh, hold on. Looks like somebody else is coming up. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Well. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm out of town right now, but I caught the tail end, and I heard what I think it's Pastor William Mike. Is it William Mike? I think that it's important it's not weakness for men to have emotions, but to piggyback on what Mike said, when you are a girl dad, you have to also teach. If you're a single girl dad, you have to teach emotions, because realistically, let's be honest, as a man, men don't always want a woman that's just hardened and doesn't have a softness to her. So it's a balance, and it doesn't mean that you're weak, but sometimes you got to do the little girl stuff with them. Sometimes I had a friend that had twins. They were a boy and a girl. And he would often, he's very much into his boys. He had an older son and then the twins. And his daughter was very, very, very talented in dancing. And he would just say it was a hobby. And I had to tell him, it's not a hobby. that is her sport. That is her passion. She, ended up getting a scholarship from Dance Theater of Harlem. She is actually really doing wonderful things in the artistic world, and I'm so proud that he finally became that quote unquote girl dad, and he supported her this a couple of weeks ago. She had a show at Howard University. She's modeling, she's doing a lot. But I used to really feel like bad for her, because she would struggle with, my dad values my brothers in football and soccer, but he thinks that this is a hobby and it's my passion. And sometimes, yeah, it's a balance. It's a delicate balance. And my daughter's father, thank God, he's a good girl dad. He's been able to navigate through teaching his daughters about the cruel world, but also being that dad that will dance in a dance recital with them, even though he may not know how to do anything but a two-step. He will be that dad that shows them how a man is supposed to love. And it's hard, because I think sometimes men feel that it's a weakness when you embrace that feminine side of a girl when you're raising a daughter. So it's a little hard. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's a little hard.
You're making a lot of sense, and I'm glad Mike's not here when you said to use the word weakness. No. Oh, he's back.
He's back.
No, but really, I want to also offer another word into this equation, which is forgiveness. Because I think a lot of times we carry these emotions as though they're badge of honors.
Right.
We carry this pain in this wounded space, and we always go back to it. And we think that this is the way we're supposed to show up because of what someone else did. And a lot of times by carrying that stuff, we have to learn how to forgive ourselves for thinking it was our responsibility to carry that into the next relationship. And the most important relationship is you have to apologize to yourself for carrying it.
Yes. Because sometimes I feel that we get caught up in, we can't show up weakness. We can't. No, it's okay to cry. It's okay to hurt. It's not a taboo thing, because when you hold it all inside, I often reference this to people that have road rage, because they're holding so much inside that the simplest thing, like getting a parking lot, will bring out a rage in them, because they are not addressing the feelings in real time. You have to address them. You can't always suppress them, because they're there. Whether we want to outwardly acknowledge them or not, they are there. It's a real thing to have emotions and feelings, and it doesn't mean you're weak. I think that it actually means you're strong when you're able to make yourself vulnerable to that emotion and still move on. I'm not saying you wallow in it. You address it, you feel it, but when you don't address something, it becomes like a cancer, and it actually festers in you, and it causes more damage than it does when you actually release it. Most people that have high blood pressure are those that hold in their anger or their emotions. Those that show their emotions, studies show, have less high, are no more prone to not having high blood pressure, because they're actually dealing with the emotion as it occurs instead of holding it in. Because when you're holding it in, you're harboring it, because it's impossible to say you don't feel hurt. It's impossible to say that you don't want to cry. It's impossible to say that when you lose a game, or you do this or you do that. I mean, it's still hurt. I referenced my Knicks. They were playing hurt yesterday, but they were still hurt that they lost. It's still a feeling. It's an emotion. Doesn't mean that they're weak and they're not men. It just means that they're identifying with what they're feeling.
That's a good point. Very good point. And thank you for jumping on and sharing. But in true fashion, y'all, listen, how you don't love Mike? What are you eating? He just went and got some food and just...
Eating Fruit Loops.
You got Fruit Loops? What you got going on? Look, what you got going on?
Some curry shrimp.
Oh, wow.
So we have some more comments. We got... Okay. Go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna hold that.
Okay, hold that. Let's go to our quick commercial break.
Oh my God.
Can't hear you.
Mark said, I love to sit with my daughter while she gets her hair and nails done. I wouldn't know to do that until I accepted my weakness through being vulnerable. Thank you, Mark. And Vaughn says, "Hey, Mike, you didn't offer us some of your food."
Right.
Shaking my head. And
Vaughn,
laugh.
didn't we talk to him about this before? Just chewing and doing all, you know. He ain't even share. He ain't even ask nobody did they want any, but it's all good. Okay,
You must
so
be from Harlem.
any comments? I guess Mike McDonald can make his comment when he comes back. Pastor Chris, you have anything you want to say on tonight's show?
Well, I can't agree with Miss Shaw in regards to being that girl dad, because for me, I got one of those girls that want to have tea parties and paint the nails, dress up, and all that stuff. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm comfortable with it, because I'm not. But I understand the process, because when she gets older, she's going to remember, Dad, remember when you used to play? I'm like, please don't. Please. I forgot about that already. Please don't. But see, it's those things that build young ladies into women, right? Because they see their dad being exposed to their world. So I have to agree with Ms. Shaw in regards to putting some of that. I mean, yeah, we want to be the protectors. Yeah, we want to go hard in the paint for our girls. But we also have to understand we got to give our girls away one day too.
So
And we got to also understand that our girls are going to start to date, regardless of how we feel about it. No man's going to be good enough for her. I'm speaking on all the girl dads out there, regardless of how well you're kept, how much money you make, how well you articulate. You are not good enough for my daughter. So it's all these things that we have to juggle. So I agree, but at the same time, we got to know when to let go too. And I think that for me, that's going to be hard, because me and my daughter like this. So
it won't
it's
be.
going to be hard for me to let her go. Just saying.
Can I say something? Thank
So
you.
Mike had a comment, so we'll go to Mike and then we'll go to Lee. Go, Mike.
Come here. So, come here. You see, this is my daughter, right? Come here, Mike. So, you're gonna tell them, right?
She's
Am I
beautiful.
insensitive? Is your dad insensitive? Is he a thug?
She's laughing.
Is he sensitive? Am I sensitive to your needs most of the time? Not all of the time, but most of the time.
Let her say it.
Can somebody else ask the question?
Just answer the question.
I think that's the answer.
Look, you better save me here.
You better. Here we go.
Come on,
Pastor, your point is made.
I think he's a great dad. I just think he could be more empathetic sometimes.
Okay. Not
Okay.
the push.
So one of the things. Look. So let me save myself here.
Right there on empathy.
So, let me save myself. Go ahead.
So check this out. My daughter, when she became a teenager, she would say, "Dad, you wish I was little again, don't you? You wish I was a baby?" Because I used to coddle her. I used to coddle her as a baby, But the world is not going to coddle you all the way through like Dad will. So you have to give them the taste of the real world, the earning, the you can't have everything you want. I just recently bought her a car. She was expecting a BMW. For real? How about this Toyota Camry? You know what I'm saying? It has to be some type of balance. And that's all I'm saying. All throughout, emotionally, every aspect, it has to be balanced. She has to see Dad as an authoritative figure. She has to see Dad as the head of the household. She has to see Dad as that person that will get it in if there's a problem outside of this home. You understand? So none of that is synonymous with being weak, but at the same time, none of that is synonymous with being unempathetic.
Wait, but empathy was introduced on your end.
Yeah,
since
yeah.
it was
And I'm
introduced,
correcting her.
It's one of the pillars of emotional intelligence.
Right. Oh, I'm intelligent like a
Wait. I'm going to call for timeout here.
Go ahead.
Mike, you asked her to speak, and when she spoke, she said, "You are a great dad, but you could be a little more empathetic." You don't get to then change the narrative. That's if I said to my kids, "Aren't I a good mom?" They have to say, "Ma, you are good because," and these are the reasons. I don't get to do that just because I paid the bills or I bought you a car or
No, I got you.
Don't take her car back because she didn't say those words.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
I told him, don't take her car back next week.
Because she didn't say you were. But a part of that is, and all I'm saying, Mike, is this. You don't get to tell her. That's how she feels. And that's how, so that's honestly, to me, you need to lean in that area in a conversation to figure out what that looks like for her.
No, I get it. I'm going to go back and eat my curry shrimp.
See, that's putting it on the shelf right there. That's putting it on the shelf right there.
Wait, we're going to need William Michael Barbie to invite Mike McDonald to the next group.
Right. Mike correcting her, I'm done. What? Because he did say, get out of here, let me save myself. Right. But you know what? Baby girl didn't agree. He said, get out of here, let me save myself.
He forced her in and then pushed her out.
But that was a good thing that Mike, one I felt for it in a way is dangerous, but it was good that it was there. And it's good that Mike is the person that he is, because you can see he has a big heart and he's open. You can see the love that they share. The other great thing tonight, it also shows, Mike, which is somewhat contrary to some of your narrative, because what you talk about strength being one way, when strength is being able to acknowledge that someone experienced you differently than what you want or perceive. And how do you reside in that position without judgment or call? And so we saw what you did. You put it on the shelf because you said, well, I'm going back to eat my potato chips, and so beyond, instead of dealing with that while you are in there, you can't say that you're being strong or you avoid. That's weakness right there. Not being able to stay in that cut. That's how weakness show up in a macho man, when he doesn't address the issue that is present.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but this is not my show.
Because you eliminate everything that you said previous.
No. This is not my show. This is not the platform to have a conversation with her about that. However, I will have that conversation. All right. Thank you.
And
you better have that camera.
So Corey said, Mike, the fact that your daughter was not afraid to be truthful shows a lot about how you raised her. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. There you go. That's how you're the winner, Mike.
You pointing that finger again.
Aha.
But I think,
somebody is observant.
That's right, Mike.
But it goes both ways, Mike. And I think that is, you are, from what we can see, and like Corey said, you're a great dad, but you also have to listen to what she's saying. And it looks different. It looks like different. Corey said, you're a great dad, but you also have to listen to what she's saying.
I understand that.
So a part of that, and I get it, because, I had a dad who was, I can show and all of these other things, but also being able to lean in and say, well, here are some areas I think, X, Y, and Z. And I say this to my kids, I have a son and daughters. I said, they're going to find something that they didn't like that I've done. And I have to be okay with it. I've done my best.
Right.
Righty. So we have another comment. Oh, it's here.
Hey, Lisa. I think she said, I think it's Mike. Weaknesses is not a negative per se. If it was a complete negative, it would not be one of the major job interview questions. No employer wants a weak employee.
Ooh, that's true. That's a whole nother perspective on it.
No, they want to
You know
know
what?
if you are a weak employee. That's what they want to know. How is that even relevant? Because it's on your job application. It's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying that to use it in the black man's narrative in this white society, or in this society period, I don't want to put a color on it, in this society period, it's a detriment to us. And that's all I'm saying.
Mike,
Okay.
and if I could offer this, mental illness and any factor dealing with our mental wellness goes beyond our color, our class, our race. It goes beyond all those factors. But what I can say, Mike, and let me support you here, brother. The mere fact that you allowed us in this topic called vulnerability, so if we bring it back home, the topic is being vulnerable. You exposed your daughter, not knowing what her response was.
Right.
You allowed yourself to be vulnerable. So I acknowledge that, brother. And the beauty is that we were able to see the love that you gave to your child, in spite of how we're experiencing your machoism. You still showed a part of you that was weak, a part of you that was willing, a part of you that was soft, a part of you that was kind, a part of you that was sweet and loving. And let me tell you, man, embrace it.
And guess what? That was good. And that's a good place to wrap it up as we do. Normally, this has been great for mental health.
Wait, let me get him first. Let me get him.
Now it's a fight. Look, I'm on your side. I just encourage you.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Okay, he joking. All right. He joking. So what we're going to do, like we always do at the close of the show, we are going to go around the table and we are going to leave some food for thought. But before we do that, we want to thank everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us. Special guest, William Michael Barbie. Yay, kudos to you. Our faithfuls, Pastor Chris, Mike McDonald, Lee jumped on, and of course, those in the comments making the show move on with your profound comments and just commenting on what's going on tonight and just being here with us. I also want to encourage you to come on out on Thursday nights with Lady Dawn B. She is live at 8 p.m. on Thursdays. So, Mike McDonald, what do you want to leave for us tonight besides your finger? The trigger. Did you just
be careful of words in your narrative? That's what started men wearing skirts.
Men been wearing kilts forever.
No joke. It's a reality.
They've been wearing. Okay, we're not gonna go to. That's a whole other
One
story.
man's
Down the rabbit
narrative,
hole.
and now they're using the same bathroom. Okay.
Okay. Nope. Muting you.
Right.
You're on mute.
Mike.
You're on mute. You are on mute. Okay. Time out. Just. He's on mute. We sorry. We are sorry. Pastor Chris.
I just had to throw a flag on the play for Mike. That was a flag on the play, Mike. That was unnecessary roughness right there, sir. No, but I get what he's saying. I do have to say it's always an honor to have Donnie Simpson's twin on the show. I'm sorry, William Bill. I'm sorry, William. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah. It's always an honor to have this brother on the show because he drops those bombs. So all I can say with everything that's gone down, even us seeing Mike have a heart, it's a mic drop. That's all I gotta say. I'm done.
All right. Okay. What I will say is, that again, we apologize. He never comes on for disclaimers. We never, in all honesty, I'm laughing, but I'm trying not to laugh. We are not here to offend anyone. Everyone is welcome here. We respect everyone's lifestyle here. So that's why we had to mute him. So I would say continue to rumble with vulnerability. When you feel it coming along, don't mask up, rest in it. Like Brene Brown said, lean into it and peel back that onion. Figure out who you are to become the better version of yourself. Elaine and then William Michael Barbie, our guest, will have the last word.
I would just say, in that vulnerable space, learn to create a safe space for yourself and being transparent with yourself. And I'll go back to the Michael Jackson, starting with the man in the mirror. Be able to say to yourself, who am I? What is it that I like? What is it that I don't like? And how do I show up and be intentional about who you are?
Thank you. I had a wonderful evening. I look forward to coming back because it is great. Elaine and I have spoken about having maybe a co-ed session where men do come on a platform to engage women. My challenge with that, and I'll get to my last word, but my challenge with that is just as the brothers are going through stages of emotional, mental, spiritual development, it'd be great if the women on that side were going through it as well so that we can meet in the middle. So my closing words is my mantra, which is leave more than you take. It's about giving of yourself to something greater. And so that's what I leave us on. Leave more than you take.
I like that. So thank you again for coming on. Quick correction. Lady Dawn B will be on this week only at 8, and then we'll resume her regular time on Thursdays at 7. Again, thank you. Again, we could not do this all without you, your support, and tuning in and just spending your Monday night with us. Pastor Cricks said like, click, and share. Like, click, and share. Thank you so much. And guess what? This coming Monday is Memorial's Day, and we will not be on, but still tune in because we still have something for you. So don't fear. Mondays Beyond the Mic will be here. You can sit back and watch it while you're barbecuing, whatever that looks like. Stir the pot. As Pastor Crick says, he's like to kick the pot over, jump out the pot, whatever goes on here. But thank you again. And we are out.
Rhythm on it. Every time I step in the arena, all I want to see you do